you guys, welcome back to my channel for those of you who are returning. If you are new here visiting for the first time, thank you for stopping by. I'm Anita with Anita by Design, and here on my channel you will find step-by-step, very detailed sew-alongs and tutorials to help you with your sewing projects. Today is video number 2 in a series of videos called Sewing Skirts with Anita, where we are sewing 4 different skirts. In the first video, we sewed a pleated skirt, and based on the comments, a lot of you guys really did like that skirt. And I want to highlight a few skirts that were completed and shared with me, so check it out. Congratulations, ladies. You did fabulous work. I love your fabric choices, and I really look forward to seeing what you're gonna do with this next skirt. For those of you who are beginners, if you've never sewn anything before joining this sew along series, I suggest that you go check out my beginner's sewing course here on my YouTube channel. In that course, I walk you through the steps of learning to sew your own garments. The videos are very detailed, and I include lots of information to help you get started. So go check that out first, and then you can come back here and join the sew along series with us. Today, we're going to be sewing a maxi skirt, and the pattern we're using is Simplicity 8885. I'm going to be sewing view D, the long version, but I realize that some of you don't wear long skirts. So if you would prefer to sew the shorter view, then you will be sewing view B. And the only difference between those two skirts is view A has a waistband and view B has a facing. I will be demonstrating the waistband, so if you are sewing view B, then follow along with the instructions that come with the pattern and insert your facing when it comes to that time. Concerning size availability, this pattern is available in sizes 6 through 22. And I do realize that some of you are outside of that size range, and what I'm going to recommend is that you check out BluPrint, where they have lots of classes on sewing and other topics too, but they are a web or a membership website, and you can join if you'd like, but if you don't want to join as a member, they have individual sewing classes where you can learn techniques for sewing, and there's one in particular called Create Any Size, and this teaches you how to grade patterns to your size. And you, like I said, you can go to BluPrint, and I will link in the description box below for you to check out that class and just purchase an individual video. I think it's a DVD that you get. So check that out down below. And the other option is check out the book Pattern Fitting with Confidence by Nancy Zeman. And I will have that linked in my Amazon store in the description box below. When you go to my Amazon store, just click on library, and then you will find the book there. That book has a lot of different techniques for altering patterns to fit your size. And the one that I use in particular is the sway back adjustment, because I usually have to do that with my bodices. So check that out and see if it will be helpful to you. I suggest that to beginners anyway, because it has a lot of great information, and I love the way that she explains it. She simplifies it, and she uses the pivot and slide method, which is easy to follow when you read her instructions. Okay, fabric choices. I'm going to be using a rayon challis fabric. It's a soft, lightweight fabric, and the suggestions on the pattern are mostly, they're all lightweight. They are challis, crepe, double georgette, lightweight denim, linen types, shirtings, and satin. So you can choose one of those types of fabric or something in the lightweight category. If you choose to use a medium weight fabric, that should work too. I would suggest staying away from heavy fabrics, I mean, of course you can choose whatever you want, but for purposes of this skirt and the way it's cut, I would suggest lightweight fabrics and maybe going into the medium weight fabrics. The skirt is being cut on a bias, so you are going to need a fabric that has drape, and the heavier weight fabrics don't tend to have much drape depending on the thickness or because they are thick. Okay, pre-treat your fabric according to the manufacturer's instructions, the care instructions. And if you are purchasing your fabric at the fabric store, then you will find the care instructions on the end of the bolt of the fabric. That cardboard bolt that the fabric is wrapped around, that's where you find the care instructions. If you are purchasing your fabric on a website, then they usually have the care instructions within the description for the particular fabric that you're choosing. Let's see, interfacing. We are going to use interfacing for the waistband, or if you're sewing the facing, you're going to need interfacing. So choose your interfacing based on the weight of your fabric. If you're using a lightweight fabric, then you're going to need a lightweight interfacing. And I'm using a fusible interfacing. You can use that, or if you prefer a sew-in interfacing, that's fine too. Notions. We're going to need an invisible zipper, 7-inch invisible zipper, and we're going to need a hook and bar closure, 2. And we're using a hook and bar rather than a hook and eye because our skirt closure has an overlap, and the hook and bar closure is appropriate for that type of construction. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I have a new Amazon store, and you can purchase your hook and bar closure there. As far as your fabric, you can purchase it online or your local fabric store. And I think that is it. I think I've covered everything. Yes, so we are ready to get started. I do suggest, if you are a beginner, that you watch the video in its entirety before getting started, just to see what you're going to be doing from beginning to end, and then just jump in. For those of you who are in my private email community, you should already have your supplies because I sent all the information to you in advance. We are ready to get started. Okay, before we get started, I want to take a look at our cutting layout. I'm sewing skirt A. If you are sewing skirt B, then it will be the same process. So we have here, if you're using the 45-inch layout, of course you're going to use this one. If you're using the 60-inch layout, you will use this one. But I'm going to demonstrate here on the 45-inch layout. So this is our fabric piece. And you see that it's laid out with the fabric open. The fabric is not folded lengthwise. It's open. So we have our selvages on this end and our selvages on this end. So let's pretend that this is one long piece of fabric. Let me draw it in. So this is going to be one long piece of fabric on our cutting table. So we have our fabric. And we're going to take this end of the fabric and we're going to fold it over to meet this end of the fabric. And that's where this double thickness is right here. Now you can cut that open if you want, or you can just leave it folded. It doesn't matter. We're not going to use the fold. So you have 2 layers of fabric now. And again, you have your selvages here and your selvages here. On your pattern pieces for the skirt, you will be cutting at a diagonal. So you're going to be cutting on the bias. What you want to do is make sure that you line up the arrow, the grain line arrow on the skirt, parallel with the selvages, and you're going to use your ruler or your tape measure to measure from one end of the arrow to the selvage and then the other end of the arrow to the selvage to make sure that it's even. And you see here that we have the skirt piece, pattern piece number 1, laid with the printed side up and then with the printed side down. That's because you're going to need 2 fronts and 2 backs, okay? So make sure you're cutting 4 pieces, and that one piece that you cut it once with the printed side up and once with the printed side down. Okay, for pattern piece number 2, your waistband, you're only going to need 1 piece. So you can cut this on a single layer of fabric. All right, I just wanted to demonstrate that just in case there's anyone who's never cut on the bias before. Okay, we're going to take care of our prep work. And these are the steps that I like to take care of in advance so that when it comes time to apply these pieces to the skirt, then they're already prepared. If you are following along with the pattern instructions, please be aware that I am working out of order. So first we're going to prepare the waistband. You're going to apply interfacing to the wrong side of your waistband. After you have done that, you're going to fold over 1/4 of an inch on the long unnotched edge. You have an edge that you cut notches into, and then you have the unnotched edge. So you're going to press under 1/4 of an inch. Now you will notice that I have finished off the raw edge of my unnotched edge. You do not have to do that. I did it because my fabric does fray a little bit, and I just want the extra security of it not fraying once it's applied to the waistband, which probably won't happen, but I just like to take extra precautions sometimes. After you have applied your interfacing to the waistband, make sure that if you can't see the markings that you transferred onto your fabric, if you've done that, if you can't see them through your interfacing, then go ahead and use your pattern piece and transfer the markings onto the interfacing. Then we're going to prepare our skirt pieces. Now, there is one skirt piece and you're going to cut 4. You're going to determine which pieces are your skirt fronts and your skirt backs. Then I want you to take your left front and your left back, and you're going to apply a strip of interfacing to stabilize the zipper area. We're inserting our zipper on the side, on the left side of our skirt. And I cut my interfacing 3/4 of an inch wide, and the length that I cut is 7 inches. So what I want you to do is measure the side of your skirt from the notch, the single notch, all the way up to within 5/8 of an inch. You want to leave this 5/8 of an inch because this is our seam allowance and we don't need to have interfacing there. So measure the length and then cut that strip and apply it to your left front and your left back skirt piece at the side seam. Now, after that, you will go ahead and finish off the raw edge. I used a serge. You can use pinking shears, you can use a zigzag stitch, and we're going to finish off the side of the left front and the left back. What I will be doing is I'm going to be pressing the left seam open, and then the other seams I'm going to finish with my serger together and just press to one side. Okay, so go ahead and take care of your 4 skirt pieces. Next, we're going to prepare our zipper, and you're looking at the zipper from the back side. So I have the zipper laying face down on top of my pressing ham, and this side I have already pressed flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on this side, and we're going to open the teeth out. You'll see that the zipper teeth are curled over onto the zipper tape. And we're going to roll it out, roll it flat, and then we're going to press it down, making sure that we're not pressing onto the zipper teeth because these are plastic and they will melt. So take your finger and flatten those teeth. Then you're going to take your iron and press, making sure that you're rolling those teeth out. Okay, and there we have our zipper prepared, and we will just set this aside until it's time to insert it into our skirt. Okay, we're going to insert a stay stitch at the waist of all of our skirt pieces, and that will prevent this curve because it's slightly curved. It's going to prevent this from stretching out of shape. So we're going to insert a stay stitch from the side seam all the way over to the center seam, and we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. Now our fabric is stabilized at the waist, so you don't have to worry about these pieces stretching out of shape. Make sure you do the same thing to the other 3 skirt pieces. Okay, now we're going to create our skirt front and skirt back. So you're going to grab 2 of your skirt pieces and make sure that you're grabbing 2 opposite pieces. One piece should have the interfacing on the side seam and the other piece should not. Okay, so we're going to place the 2 pieces together. We're going to pin in place. Starting at your notches, and then I'm going to go up to the waist, and then you're going to just continue pinning along the length of the center, whether this is your center front or your center back, and you're going to pin all the way down to the hem of the skirt, and you're going to make sure you do this to create a skirt front and a skirt back. And then we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to insert a 5/8 inch straight seam from the hem all the way up to the waist. Let's insert our fabric, remove the pin. Okay, we have that seam sewn in. Now you're going to go ahead and finish off the raw edges. I'm going to serge mine. You can use whichever method you choose. Okay, I will be using my Baby Lock Vibrant Serger to finish off the center front, center back, and the right seam on my skirt. I have serged the left side individually, the fabric layers individually, because of the zipper insertion. After I have finished the seam, then I'm going to open out the skirt, take it to the pressing station, and I'm going to press the seam over to one side. If you have finished off your edges individually, you can press your seam open, okay? And then we'll go ahead and move to the next step. Okay, now we're going to sew in the seam for the left side of the skirt. So I have the left front and left back pinned together, and here we have our stabilized area for the zipper. So this is the front and back pinned together, and here where you see the first pin that's inserted perpendicular to the finished edge, this is where the notch is in our fabric, and that's where the zipper stop will be placed. And then I've measured down 1 inch from that notch and placed another pin. This is where I'm going to stop my stitching and do a back stitch. Okay, so let's go ahead and sew in this seam, and I'm going to start from the hem. Okay, at this point I lost sound. My battery died for my mic. So I'm just going to narrate from this point. When you reach the first pin, go ahead and backstitch. And after that, we're going to sew in a basting stitch from that point all the way to the top edge of the skirt. And I like to do this because it gives me, or when after I sew in the basting stitch, I press the seam open and it gives me a nice crisp fold on which to place the zipper teeth when we're inserting the invisible zipper. Now, you don't have to do it this way. You can stop at that first pin, backstitch, then go press the seam open using your seam gauge to measure a 5/8 inch opening where we left or where you leave the fabric open. But like I said, I like to do it this way because it gives me a nice crisp edge or a crisp fold for the zipper insertion. So go ahead and, if you're following this method, sew in the basting stitch, making sure that you do not back stitch at the end of this row of stitching. Then after you have completed that stitch, go ahead and open out your seam allowance, and you're going to go to your pressing station and press it flat. If you are not closing up that seam, then use your seam gauge to fold over 5/8 of an inch on both sides and just press that open. Okay, we have our center or our left seam sewn, and we're going to go ahead, for those of you who have basted the opening closed for the zipper, go ahead and grab your seam ripper and just open that up. Now, I realize that this is extra work for some of you, but I just prefer to do it this way because I like the nice fold that I can use as a guide to place the zipper teeth against when I'm sewing the zipper in. It doesn't take too much extra time. It's quick if you have it. Make sure you're using a sharp seam ripper. Don't ever use a dull seam ripper because you can risk ripping your fabric. Okay, so we have that open, and you can go ahead and clean up those threads. Okay, I'll finish cleaning those up later. Now, you're going to go ahead and grab your zipper, and I'm going to start on the right side. Open out your seam allowance, and remember, we've stabilized it with the interfacing. So open it out, and we're going to take our zipper, and we're going to place the zipper with the face down, okay? And we're going to use, like right now I have, let's just call this the right side, just for demonstration purposes. This is the right side, and then here we have the left side, okay? So on the right side, you're going to place your zipper face down, and you're going to attach the left side of the zipper onto the seam allowance here on the right, and you're going to place your zipper along that fold. Your zipper teeth should fall right on that fold, and then you're going to pin that zipper into place. Make sure that the zipper is right along the fold. And you want to go down as far as you can, and I'm just going to place one pin here just to keep that zipper straight. Okay, so there we have our zipper in place, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to just press right along the zipper teeth and install the zipper on that side. Okay, I have my zipper foot attached that came with my Baby Lock Soprano, and I have it set up to sew on the right side because I'm attaching the zipper on the right side of the skirt. So let's go ahead and insert the zipper. What you may also want to do, if you pinned your zipper on parallel to the zipper teeth as I did, go ahead and insert the pins into that zipper so that when you come upon them to pull your zipper out, you're not going to poke yourself with the pin. Okay, so let's just insert those. Now when I go to pull this pin out, I'm not going to stick myself on the next pin. and then sew down as far as it will go, and then backstitch. And here you will see, and I used a contrasting thread so that you could see, and also because I just didn't feel like changing thread colors, let me just be honest. So there we have it, and then when we fold it over, you see that it's nice and neat. And once we attach the other side, when we close it, we should have a nice invisible zipper installed. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go and pin the other side onto the other side, onto the left side of your fabric the same way. And what you're going to do is turn it over, open out your seam allowance. Let me demonstrate this really quickly here. Okay, open out the seam allowance on the other side. We have our zipper attached, and we're just going to fold it over, okay, to where the zipper is face down onto that seam allowance, and we're going to pin and do the same thing that we did on the other side. Then go ahead and sew this side of the zipper onto your skirt, and then I will show you how we're going to close up that opening. Okay, now I have the zipper attached to both sides, and we're going to close it up. And there we have a nice invisible zipper. You can't see the teeth. And here at the top, you want to make sure that you have an even distance from that zipper pull to the edge on both sides. If yours turned out to be lopsided, one side longer than the other, then just go ahead and remove it and redo it, because you want to make sure that it's even so that when you attach your waistband, everything will line up properly. So we're going to close up this opening. So let's remove the fabric and turn it over to the wrong side. And we're going to locate where the opening is, and we're going to close up the seam allowance, and we're going to place it under the presser foot and use your hand wheel. Find where that back stitch starts, and use your hand wheel to turn down, making sure that you're hitting right where that back stitching starts. Lower your presser foot, and then I'm going to open out the seam allowance, making sure that it's flat, and I'm going to press it onto the sewing table, and I'm going to open it out on the other side, moving the zipper out of the way. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew from where the seam is open all the way up to here where it closes, where that zipper ends, beginning and ending with a back stitch. Now, as you come up on the zipper where that stitching ends, you're not going to meet that stitching exactly in line. You're going to be sewing over to the left of that stitching a little bit, just past where the back stitching ends. So just take your time, open that out, press it flat with your finger, and then continue sewing. And then once you have gone past that zipper stop where the back stitching is, just go ahead and back stitch. Okay. And there you will see we have our stitching, the first line of stitching where we attach the zipper, and then to close up the opening, it's over to the left side of that stitching. Okay, then we're going to open it out and take a look. Okay, so here is, let's open the zipper, and here is where it ends. So you can see that we've closed it up very nicely. And once you go to the pressing station and give that a nice press, it will look even better. Okay, so there we have closed up our opening, and now we're ready to move on to the next step. Oh, another thing is, someone asked me a couple of years ago, I think it's when I demonstrated how to install an invisible zipper, if you could use a hand sewing needle and thread to close up this opening. You absolutely can. And what you would do is the same thing. Locate where the opening is and just use your hand sewing needle, starting where the back stitching is, and just hand sew it all the way up. And that way you can sew it exactly to meet that stitching line. So if you would prefer to hand stitch yours closed and get a more perfect line that meets, then please feel free to go ahead and do that. Okay, next we are sewing our right side seam. So go ahead and pin the side seam together, and we're going to start from the hem and sew all the way up to the waist. Then you will go and finish off your seam allowance. Okay, we have our skirt front and back attached to each other. Now we're going to attach the waistband. So open out your zipper. Then we're going to take the waistband, and with the right side facing, we're going to attach the waistband where we have the marking transferred onto the facing, and we're going to attach that right at the edge where the zipper is with the raw edges even, and pin into place. Then we're going to move over to where the two notches are on the waistband for the skirt. Where are they? We have one here and one here, and we're going to find the two notches on the waistband, and there they are. We're going to line up those notches. Then we're going to go around to the other side and line up the notches on the other side. Here they are on the waistband. And here they are on the skirt. So let's pin those together. Then you're going to go back and fill in the gaps in between and continue pinning the waistband to the skirt. And we're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam from one end to the next. Okay, we're going to sew in a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you don't know where the 3/8 inch mark is on your sewing machine, then take your seam gauge, move the slider over to the 3/8 inch mark, and then you're going to put your slider under your presser foot. There should be a center mark on your presser foot. If not, then use your needle position. Place the seam gauge right where the needle falls, and then you're going to take your fabric and place it right next to the slider on the seam guide, and that will be your 3/8 inch mark. Make sure you've got the fabric straight, and if you need to keep yourself straight, you can place a piece of tape or some type of marker that's going to stick to your needle plate to keep you sewing a straight line. Okay, and actually I'm going to move down to start where the zipper is. Okay, and we're going to start and end with a back stitch and sew in our seam. Okay, we have our seam sewn in. Now you're going to trim that seam. You're going to take it to your pressing station, and you're going to press your seam allowance toward the waistband. Okay, I have pressed my seam allowance toward the waistband. Now we're going to take the waistband and we're going to fold it in half with the right sides together. And you should have transferred a dot on your waistband on both sides. You should have transferred a dot. You want to make sure that those dots are lined up with each other, and you also want to make sure that these folds are lined up. So we have a fold on both sides of the waistband. We want to place the folds even with each other, making sure your raw edges are even too, and that your dots are lined up. Okay, so this is what we have. Now we're going to open out the seam allowance, or the fold, the seam allowance on the bottom. And then we're going to open out this seam allowance on the top, making sure that those folds are lined up. The fold lines are even with each other. Then you're going to pin in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew a stitch from here to the end, and then we're going to stitch right along the 5/8 inch mark on this edge. So I'm going to start here at the fold and stitch a 5/8 inch, and then I'm going to stop and pivot here and then continue down. Okay? Okay, I'm going to raise my presser foot, leaving your needle down in the fabric, and pivot. And we're going to sew right over to the dot, just to the dot. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and trim off the seam allowance and trim here at the corner. Then we're going to go over to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. Now, I want to bring your attention to something. There is a seam here on my waistband. That's because somehow I cut my waistband too short. So I just took an extra piece of fabric and added to it so that it would extend past the zipper and give me the extra length that I needed. So we're going to fold this in half. And again, we're going to line up the folds. We don't have dots to line up this time, just the folds. Okay, and then we're going to open out the fold and pin. And this time we're only inserting a 5/8 inch seam right along this raw edge. And then we're going to trim the seam allowance. And then we're going to take our point turner, and we're going to turn the corners out. So turn the waistband right side out, and then using your point turner, you just go ahead and push that corner out, and you will do the same thing on the other side. Turn it right side out, and we're going to push both corners out. Okay, so there we have our extension. And then here is the other side of the waistband. Okay, next what we're going to do, and we're going to just push that under. Next we're going to sew our waistband to the skirt at the fold by using the stitch in the ditch method. Okay, I want to show you how I pin the waistband in place. Take your seam gauge and move your slider over to the 1/8 inch mark. Then you're going to place the edge of your seam gauge right at the seam where the waistband is attached to the skirt. Then you're going to fold over your waistband and place it right where that slider ends. Then you're going to pin it into place. You're going to pin the entire waistband onto your skirt, and then you're going to go to your pressing station, and you're going to press this down along the edge, along the fold of your waistband, removing your pins unless you're using glass head pins. You don't want to press over the balls on the pins if you're using these with the balls. And then after that, we're going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to stitch in the ditch. So what you want to make sure of when you're pinning, if you're using your seam gauge, it should be no problem. You want to make sure that you can feel the fold under this fabric past this seam. We're going to be stitching in the middle of this seam, and in order to catch the waistband on the back side, that fold needs to extend past the seam. Okay, to sew down the fold of the waistband to the skirt using the stitch in the ditch method, I'm going to use the edge joining foot, and this is an additional accessory that can be purchased for the Baby Lock Soprano, and it has this black guide, this black metal guide on the back, and this guide, you place it along the seam line, and the needle sews wherever that guide is, and it stitches right in the middle of that seam if you're placing the guide along the seam. So I'm going to attach this one. And then line the fabric. I'm lining up the fabric, the skirt, right at that seam, allowing that guide to fall right on the seam. And as I'm stitching, I need to make sure that the guide is right along that seam. Okay? And I'm going to take my time and slowly to make sure that I'm staying on that seam line. Okay, and we have our waistband sewn down. And let's take a look from the back side. And here we have we caught in the fold. Okay? Okay, after you have sewn down the waistband to the skirt, you want to install your hooks and bars. Make sure that you attach the bars to the side with the extension, and then you will attach the hooks to the other side. Okay, now we're gonna prepare the hem of our skirt. But before we do anything to prepare the hem, we need to make sure we allow our skirt to hang overnight. You may even allow it to hang up to 24 hours. And what that does is it allows the fabric to settle to where it's going to be, and then we'll come back and start preparing. So what I have done, oh, also before you do any preparation for your hem, after you have allowed it to hang overnight, try on your skirt. Try it on with whatever shoes you're going to wear with it to see where or how much of a hem you need. Now try on your skirt and then see also if it's hanging evenly, because sometimes the hem won't be even after we sew it together. So try it on. If you can get the help of a family member or someone to take a look in the back and help you to even it out, you can do that. If it's too long, then you can trim it. You're going to take your seam gauge and just measure how much you need to cut off of your hem to get the length that you want, keeping into consideration that you will need to sew in a hem allowance. Now, after you have done that, then you will finish off the raw edge. I've used my serger to finish off the raw edge. And then after you finish off your raw edge with your chosen method, I want you to go and sew in a basting stitch all the way around the perimeter of your skirt. And you're going to sew the basting stitch close to the edge, because we're going to use that basting stitch to ease in the fullness as we press over our hem allowance before we sew it in. And what that's going to do is it's going to help to eliminate some of the folds that we usually get when we're hemming a circular skirt. Okay, I have sewn in a basting stitch near the edge of my skirt, and I tried on my skirt and I cut off enough of the hem to where I'm going to sew in a 3/4 inch hem for my skirt. Okay, so I've measured up, and this is the amount that I'm going to be sewing for my hem. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. Then we're going to continue going around the skirt, measuring and pressing up our hem. Okay. Okay, now I'm measuring here, and you see, hopefully you can see that there is some extra fabric here. It's not lying flat against the skirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the basting stitch, I'm going to use a straight pin, and I'm going to pull up the basting stitch, and I'm going to pull it to ease in that fabric. And now you see it's lying flat. And I'm going to go back and make sure I measure that, and then come down and measure. So that's what we're going to do. As you go around the skirt, whenever you're pressing up your hem and you come to a point where there is extra fabric on the hem and it's not lying flat against the skirt, take a pin and pull up the basting stitch to ease in that fullness, and then press it in place. And we're going to continue doing that around the skirt. And here I have a little bit of fabric poking out or sticking out from the skirt, so I'll just pull it up and then press it. If you are sewing in a deeper hem, if let's say you're doing 1.5 or 1 inch hem, then you will get more of that happening where the fabric is not lying flat against your skirt, and you will get folds within your hem as you continue to turn up the hem. So that's what you will do. Just pull up the basting stitch and continue to press along around the hem. Okay, so go ahead and press in your hem around your entire skirt, and then we're going to go to the sewing machine and sew the hem down. Okay, I have my skirt inserted at the hem, with the right side facing up. I'm gonna sew my hem in from the right side, and I am using a 3.0 millimeter stitch length. Okay, then we're gonna back stitch. Okay, we have our hem sewn in place. You're gonna go ahead and give your skirt one final press, and we are done. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more like this, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. And when you do, hit the little bell to the side of the subscribe button so that you will be notified when new content posts here to my YouTube channel. For those of you who are not part of my private email community and you would like to join, I will have a link in the description box below for you to go check it out. There are a lot of benefits there, but let me just mention a few. There's exclusive content that only the people in the private email community will see. It won't be posted here or on my blog. There are exclusive giveaways. All kinds of fun giveaways are coming up. Private voting for sew-alongs. The people who are in my private community had the opportunity to help me choose the skirts that we are sewing in this sew-along series, and I will give other opportunities for the people in the community to help me choose patterns to use in future sew-alongs. You don't get to choose all of them, but every once in a while I will give the community free reign to help me choose the patterns. Also, there is advanced notification for the pattern information that we're sewing. In this series, the people who are in the community, they have already received the information that I have shared with you in the opening for the video: pattern, fabric, notions, and then a few tips to help them be prepared before the video posts, so that when the video is ready, then they have their things and they're ready to jump in and get started. So those are just a few of the benefits. I think you will like it, so I invite you to go check it out. Instagram. If you are on Instagram, I invite you to share with me what you're making. If you're following this series, if you're following along with my skirt videos, then share using the hashtag #SewingWithAnita. You can also share by using the hashtag AnitaByDesign, and you can follow me over there. I would love to highlight you in my next video. I love to see what you guys are doing, and I love to share you guys with the rest of the community. If you are not on Instagram and you would like to share with me, you can send me an email at contact@anitabydesign.com. And in that email, make sure you send a photo as an attachment. That helps me to download it, and then I can share your skirt, your beautiful work too. All right, so make sure you share with me. I want to see what you're doing. The next sew-along will be announced first in the email community. You will get advance notice of what we're going to do, and then it will be posted here for the rest of you to see it on the day that it is released. All right, that is about it. As always, please remember that when you live in your design, it is from there that God shines. That means when you live according to the way that you have been created, it is from that place that God will use you to bless other people. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.